Welcome to the Voice of MPE, the official podcast of Merchant Payments Ecosystem, Europe's largest merchant payments conference. Today, we are at the 16th Annual MPE Conference, MPE 2023. This podcast brings you interviews with payment industry leaders and professionals from the entire payment world. For more information, head over to www.merchantpaymentsecosystem.com. Today, we are talking about payment orchestration. Mark Beresford from Edgar, Dunn Company, moderator of this session, spoke with Anirudh Narla from Hopper, Adam Vissing from IXOPAY, Kieran Mongey from ACI Worldwide, Andrzej Tomaszewski from GetResponse, and Christophe BOURBIER from Thunes. What drives payment orchestration? And what are the payment optimization strategies for better acceptance rates? Listen to this episode and learn about navigating the blind spots of payment orchestration.
And it's really interesting, this panel. I'll tell you why. It's because we've got a mix of suppliers and merchants, which is an OTA, first of all.
Yeah, hi, I'm Anirudh, representing the merchant side. I come from Hopper, so I lead the payments team at Hopper. We are an online travel agency, third biggest in North America and growing internationally in Europe, APAC, and LATAM. We sell everything from flights, hotels, car rentals, and going into apartments as well. So we've been a customer of another payment orchestration players, and happy to share our stories and learnings.
Thank you. And you can tell he's a merchant because he's got a blue line. So, Adam.
Nice to meet you all. My name's Adam Vissing. I'm VP Sales at IXOPAY. Some would say the best orchestration platform on the market today. Definitely I would, but I'm probably a bit biased. I've been at IXOPAY for 5 years, working, basically consulting very large global companies in introducing orchestration platforms into their business and scaling their payment.
Excellent. Kieran, your colleague has spoken.
Yep. My name's Kieran Mongey. I'm the principal consultant at ACI. I work within the product development team and help drive our innovation. I actually think I can claim to be a merchant and a vendor because I actually held payment management roles at John Lewis and Vodafone in a previous life. And now I kind of work within ACI to support our merchants with my experience as a merchant in how we can deploy that orchestration platform.
Nice to get that different perspective.
Yeah. And just finally, I'm an accountant, so I have we do a lot of financial modeling and really what Stuart talked about, understanding that opportunity versus that cost of ownership. And I think as an industry, we're miles away from fully understanding the real numbers behind what payment strategy can do. So we're really focused on drilling down into that. What's the real kind of strategy financially bring to the table for your stakeholders within the business?
And merchants love to hear about the return on investment, don't they?
Well, they don't like to hear from accountants. So,
So finally, I'm going to ask my friend Andrzej to talk about GetResponse, which is another merchant, but from a B2B, is that right? And more of a subscription type of model.
Yes, exactly. Hello, everyone. This is only we don't plan that merchant city got left and right side and the perspective of sellers inside. This is accident, let's say. So yes, I'm from GetResponse. GetResponse is our email marketing and marketing automation platform. We are on the market around 25 years, and many years ago we decided to manage all of the credit cards, customers' credit card data on our site, and the journey it's continue this way. So I can present the perspective of merchant as payment orchestration inside in our product. So I'm happy to be here and share with you my perspective on this topic. Thanks,
Andrzej. So I'm actually going to start with you and then go that way.
Okay.
And maybe from a merchant perspective, can you talk a little bit about the lessons learned and the war stories that you've experienced that some merchants in the audience might find interesting around payment orchestration? Because as a subscription model, your business is subscription, pay per month or whatever. There's different subscription plans. I imagine the most important thing for you is in terms of geographic reach and alternative forms of payment. You've got to accept lots of different payments in different markets.
Yes.
So maybe if you could elaborate on that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, this is everything is true. So generally, the GetResponse is an international product available on whole markets, mostly B2B, generally B2B, but it's a self-service product or enterprise as well. But we had a lot of experience with different PSPs and connecting into our internal ecosystem. And depends on market, we're deciding for different PSPs. And generally, this is the point that Stuart said, that it's finding about this 1% conversion, and it doesn't it makes a difference for us. So we care about it, and generally our strategy and policy is that if you want to grow on specific market much faster, we're looking there for local payment, not local payment methods, but at local PSPs. And this is our strategy. And after that, we are deciding for, if we have local PSPs, we are looking for local payment methods and local currencies as well. So this is something that we built as our strategy. We divided the, let's say, whole world for region. And on this specific region, we are looking on the markets when we want to grow faster. And then we are looking for specific PSPs and specific payment methods on this market. Great example is Brazil, where we launched 5 years ago local acquiring, using, someone said about it during the presentations, using the internal company there and selling using alternative payment methods. Really popular there. It's a boleto banqueiro, if I hope I said it correctly. But after that, our conversion was increased really fast because the international credit cards is not so popular on this market. So yeah, this is our strategy.
And Kieran, from your merchants, there's a question there about local processes. Do you have to have relationships with local processes? Surely that's the function of the orchestration platform. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we all know in Europe it's a single entity, but it's 25 different cultures with different shopping behaviors and wallets. You talked about in certain countries, it's fundamental, critical. You have the local wallet. Then you have different consumer expectations around fraud risk. So all those different components, we used to just think about which bank and which, how to create a checkout. There is 15, 16 different considerations on a country level that make up that 1% kind of strategy, and you talked about it yourself. So, if every country requires that kind of bespoke setup, and we've got, a large, we focus on global businesses, and there's a company they're in 28 different countries globally, and I think we've got 27 different endpoints and wallets that they kind of connect to. So every country is very much treated in isolation, because if you created a universal strategy across 25 whatever different cultures, then you're destined to fail.
There's a question in there about tokenization. Is that something that you can pick up on?
So it's true that tokenization is very linked to credit card. Right. Of course, we all talk about tokenization when it comes to credit card, but it's not limited to credit card. We do also some kind of tokenization. We do it for Uber, tokenization for alternative payment methods, where you want to offer a seamless experience and avoid the user to type again any type of financial card on file, stuff like this. And so some alternative payment method enables it from the beginning, the way they have been designed. Some other don't. And we offer tokenization for both of this type of alternative payment method. And that will win because, of course, those alternative payment method, they want also to offer this type of services that are very key for some specific merchant.
And Adam, from a IXOPAY point of view, is tokenization kind of key to your offering? Is that something that's...
I think that tokenization is really the fundamental element that you need to have to build an orchestration platform in the first place. Right. And it's often one that is underestimated when companies think that they can or should build a platform themselves, because of course tokenization, as long as it relates to cards, involves becoming PCI DSS compliant, maintaining that certification. Yeah. That is something that is very easily underestimated.
Do merchants come to you and say, we want to build it ourselves, and then have to come back to you and say, actually, we did this a few years ago. It was a bad idea.
So I think that, this is not necessarily limited to the payment space. I think that software engineering is generally hard to estimate, even if things like ChatGPT are making it a lot easier to develop code today. But overall, it's very difficult to stay on time and budget with a software project, no matter what it is. So when I'm looking at developing something like, let's say, an orchestration platform that has all of the capabilities that we've all been talking about for years, and I want to do that in-house, if I'm looking at tokenization, and I haven't done something like a PCI DSS compliance project before, I will probably underestimate what it means, and I will probably fail at sticking at my project plan, at my budget, and maybe a couple of years down the line, I'll come back to Adam and say, well, Adam, maybe we could buy something out of the box.
Right.
So this is, I think, not necessarily just payments, a payments topic. IT projects fail. Many IT projects fail. And that's why, our position is when you approach these kind of challenges, when you want to implement multi-acquiring, you have the choice between getting something that works, that is there today, a known set of features, a known set of capabilities, maybe limitations, and reap benefits from it now, versus taking the risky path and maybe failing.
So from an online, remind me, you're the merchant of record, is that correct? You're merchant of record, OTA, your online travel agents. Do you, there's a question there about open banking, is that something that's part of your offering? You offer that as versus cards? Is that something that you're...
Today we don't.
Right.
We are focused also a lot in the US, where it's ACH, there are a lot more other problems and issues over there, which we could actually have open banking.
But the US is very cards orientated, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So bring it to home, in terms of across Europe, are you seeing more alternative forms of payment, alternative to cards?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you obviously mentioned, I think like as soon as you go out of the US and obviously Europe and APAC, you need to start supporting the wallets, the local bank payment methods, right? So in India, everything is built on use of UPI, right? So you need to support that over here also in Europe with, we obviously have a lot of local account-to-account payment methods, but also open banking. And I think there's obviously a lot of benefits from a merchant perspective because low chargebacks, low cost, right? But we do see in certain pockets and for certain consumers, hesitation to use it because of that, obviously, that, as the question alludes to, there's a lot of protection which you get from cards. And again, not a lot of people know it, right? So people who are more credit card users, who understand the insurance. So we do see in the premium segments, users they don't really see the value of open banking. So I think it feels like it's great for merchants, but I think the value proposition from a consumer perspective needs to be a bit more stronger, specifically when they do have access to premium credit cards, which give a lot of protection, right? Which is not the case with open banking. So I would say, the question is true for a certain aspect. But again, I think a lot of our customers who pay with debit cards, for them, essentially, it's not very different, right? So again, I think there also needs to be a bit more incentive from a consumer perspective why they would use open banking over cards or different payment methods.
And I imagine in your sector, you're selling airlines, you're selling airline tickets, you're selling hotels. People are just more orientated towards using a credit card. Is that what you found?
So again, it depends on that segment of user, right? So premium segment, higher AOVs, they do typically like their credit cards because of the loyalty built in, protection built in to that. But at the same point of time, I think when you so those group of users, I think it's incredibly hard to actually get them to use open banking. But for debit card users, also in different, I think in Netherlands, for example, you use Ideal, right? It's very, very common. Everyone uses Ideal to pay over there. Not a lot of folks actually have access to credit cards. So I think again, those pockets, it is relatively easier for consumers to use. Also, there's not so much protection when you use Ideal, for example.
Is your cost of interchange on a US card on a $1,000 ticket, it's into the £10 cost. So Are you thinking about open payment and some sort of backing that up with loyalty or to really drive that cost of ownership?
Yeah. So in the US, it does not work. In the US, you have a lot of issues with ACH, right? Like there's there's chargeback. You can like reverse a transaction without any question. It takes multiple days to settle. You're not sure if it's going to work out, right? So in the US, it doesn't really work. And then outside of the US, I think to drive adoption, you need to give some sort of incentive. And there's like UI, UX tricks you can do, which you can argue whether it's really in the interest of the consumer or not. But the philosophy we have taken is like, if it does benefit us, let's actually share those benefits with the customers. And that can be obviously prices, selection, etc.
Just a general question to the panel. Payment orchestration is, just correct me if I'm wrong, it's a technical connection. It doesn't provide you with any commercial arrangements with the local provider. Is that correct? Is that generally correct? Or do you think payment orchestration will eventually have bundled pricing in with it as well? So a contract with the local provider is still the merchant's responsibility to sort out. Is that what you're finding?
We have some. We break our orchestration down into sort of structures in terms of buy now, pay later or wallets.
Yeah.
And that we're going down the path of aggregating our contracts with the wallet aggregators and so forth, so that we're part of the commercial proposition and the merchants benefit from that. So it's a bit of a hybrid of that question for us.
Right.
And for sure at Thunes,
at
Thunes, because as I said, the fact that it's so complex to have a contract with the APM, but also the way you are going to collect the money, we want to make this super easy for the merchant as a gateway. So we try to not just stay in the tech, but have everything negotiated on behalf of merchants.
You were talking about the blind spots earlier, and I think that was quite interesting about the settlement of the funds. I mean, that is a bit of a blind spot. Is that kind of has a knock-on effect in that actually it makes it harder for the merchant to do the reconciliation at the end of the day? Is that a bit of a challenge?
It is, because if you are a merchant in Europe and you sell to European, you are going to receive all the money. I make it simple, but in euro, day plus one, easy. But then when you start to sell in 30, 40 different countries, that you want to receive the money in 3 or 4 different countries with a good effects and different effects, and you are being settled day plus 1, day plus 3, day plus 5, I can tell you that the reconciliation start to become a little bit painful. So you want to make this easy, of course, for the merchant to facilitate their expansion.
I noticed there's a question there about the future needs, and I was going to kind of end on that question, but I want to bring it in now. Is reconciliation, for merchants, a bit of a headache, and that is something that orchestration could start to address?
We unify all of our, those 20 endpoints I talked about with the merchant. Orchestration isn't about how many endpoints. It is critical, but then the way you dispatch and you dynamically route and you present those wallets to the consumer, right? At the front end is first step, and then you go through the orchestration and the configuration, simple code, easy to do, A/B testing, always being able to chop and change a strategy is critical. At the back end in Treasury, then to pull all that into a unified, simple structure that picks up alerts and reports and gives you insights into consumers is as important as anything, right? You could have 20 people in a treasury function at, in my previous world at John Lewis or Vodafone, that can be broken down to 2 or 3, across the whole of Europe, reconciling huge saving.
We'll come back to IXOPAY. I mean, from your perspective, is reconciliation something that your merchants are talking to you about?
What we've seen with our largest clients, our largest enterprise clients, is that settlement processing, consolidation, reconciliation with ERP is typically one of the largest cost reduction factors in any orchestration project, because there's kind of 2 sides to the orchestration game with a large global company. Of course, there's the complexity of dealing with all external payment partners that company works with, but there is also the IT jungle that those companies have typically built up over decades. And which means that, if you're reconciling, you're not reconciling with one ERP system or one order management system. That client might have 5, 6, 10 different ones for different regions, different technology stacks in different regions, different providers in different regions. So the whole topic of payment transaction data reconciliation is an orchestration challenge in itself towards the internals of the company, and that is something that drives IT costs with these kind of organizations, and where there is a lot of potential. I mean, we've spoken today about increasing the top line, better conversion, and so on. But the bottom line is cost reduction, and that is definitely one of the biggest drivers of that.
I mean, we as a consultancy, just around about the pre-pandemic, we started to see payment orchestration being really talked about a lot. We started to develop a database of payment orchestration platforms who were claimed to be payment. I think on the original version was like 5 key players around the world. There's like 22 different providers now, if not more. And we still keep finding them. Do you think payment orchestration is kind of getting a little bit, crowded, or is it still got room to grow?
I think it's a little bit less crowded since last week already, right? I think last year when I was here and I was in this panel, it also got a little bit less crowded just before that panel. So I mean, yes.
It's changing.
Look, I see it very positively because it means that there is great interest, there is understanding that this is a discipline that needs to be addressed. Will every business make it in this space? Probably not. Is every business that stamps an orchestration label on their current offering an orchestrator in the way that we would understand it? Maybe not, but we're not, defining the term.
And for the benefit of the audience, an orchestration layer or payment orchestration platform should be agnostic to the acquiring. Yeah, is that correct? Yeah, we're all agreeing. There's lots of nodding heads, which is good. From a retail perspective, I mean, just going back to that previous question about reconciliation, are there some challenges? I mean, you're a global business.
Yes, and generally, it's something a little bit outside my domain, but if I understand reconciliation and how we manage this important things and challenging things, of course, is that we are not selling as a European company whole of the world. So we are trying to manage in different regions as different companies. Yes?
So different legal entities.
Yes, right. Different legal entities. And it helps us to manage these situations that Adam said before, that it's day plus 1, day plus 3, and so on. Yes, so this is probably not the cheapest solution, but something that it's possible to do to manage this from the perspective of global merchant and definitely with global business. I want to add something to the previous answer about the orchestration, about how merchants think about it. From my point of view is that, and this is my observation on the Polish market because I'm coming from Poland, when I'm talking with let's say software as a service businesses, because we are exchange knowledge really often, it's that, and I mean about the profitable businesses, it's like, okay, let's connect with some PSPs, and then it's like, think about product, improve our product and made our product the best, and forgot about these things about payments. And then after a few years of selling the products, they see the problem with the acceptance rate, for example, and why customers leaving us and cannot pay. And this is the moment when the orchestration question is coming in, and what I can do with it. And this is something that, from my point of view, merchants, especially SaaS businesses, forgot and mainly focus about the really good product, really value and profitable product, and forgot about this, let's say, back office things to do to manage the payments in the product as well.
I'm going to bat over back to a travel agent, and in terms of it's obviously you're entirely in the cloud, you're accepting payments, it's e-commerce. No ambitions to have a physical store or physical? No,
we had, and we completely moved to cloud about a year ago.
So your main challenge is around geographic reach, I guess.
Yeah. So obviously, as we are expanding into multiple markets, accepting local payment methods. And we also realized, I think, like you need to work with domestic and local payment processors and acquirers if you want to have the greatest authorization rate, if you want to have like avoid the cross-border fees, right? So I think going back, I think connectivity obviously is important, getting access to, all the different connections.
So but in terms of the challenges from your perspective, are you kind of relying on the payment service providers and the payment orchestration platforms that you deal with to deal with it, or are you doing it in-house? I mean, what's the balance?
So we try to partner with service providers, because I think like that's thing which you guys do great at that, right? But obviously what we have realized is that great, we want to have connectivity, but there are a lot of blind spots. Reporting and reconciliation obviously is one of the big blind spots. Aggregating all the analytics was a big blind spot. Chargebacks, when you have a lot of chargebacks, now you have to like go through different, work with different acquirers, and it increases your operational complexity a lot as you think about like as you're increasing your connections. And a lot of that stuff, obviously, we brought in-house because just like it was not available with our service providers. But I think like as you're thinking about the future, next to 3-5 years, I actually think about like payment orchestration, solving that entire value chain of the entire end-to-end payment process, not only at the connection layer, but also at the back office, reconciliation, operations, chargebacks, disputing, analytics, contracting as well.
Contractual,
And contracting again is like, I don't want to be contracting with every partner in Singapore, right? Maybe I do want to contract with the top 10 providers, acquirers, because like we can have special deals and marketing campaigns, etc. But again, contracting again is one more thing which I would love to sort of like.
But I mean, how do you make that decision? You know, that the top 10, is it the top 10 because that they're the most used by the local consumers, or is it the top 10 because they're the cheapest?
We always lead by consumers. So whatever consumers tell us, like they want to pay with this payment method because they have a lot of benefits, they actually use it on a day-to-day purpose. So we actually always lead from a ranking perspective, what consumers tell us.
And you should be able to just switch that on and off and do testing and let's do a proof of concept for a month, plug it in, see what it does. Then you have to analytically understand what was the average transaction value in that method versus, what did I take from cards to put there, which would have happened anyway. There's a lot of analytics, but the capability now to do that proof of concept is there because
quite conscious of time and the questions coming up. I'm going to ask the panel maybe just to whip through. If you were asked to come back 3 years' time, what do you think are when you're talking about payment orchestration, what do you think are the number one thing that you'll see that you're not getting today, but you'd like to see in the future? Andrzej?
About payment orchestration, something connected with the tokenization and some still better usage of tokenization in payment orchestrations. Maybe one standard for whole PSPs and try to using in different PSPs one token, maybe something like this.
So like a network.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Tokenization. What from your perspective?
Well, it's thereabouts, but the whole payments ecosystem of merchant, like invoicing, receipts, right end to end, not just the consumer payment.
Okay, interesting. Too.
I just foresee more and more and more alternative payment methods, and I'm being biased.
Totally understood. It's a very good question. I mean, who had foreseen what happened in the last 3 years, 3 years ago, right? Can I assume that PSD3 will already be passed? No. Okay. More payment methods, scalability, things like that.
Okay, so more payment. So I haven't forgotten you, but I haven't forgotten Hopper. But from a merchant's perspective, it sounds like life is getting more complicated.
Yes.
Oh God, that's great. That's a great thing to end on.
No, I mean, so obviously, I 100% agree with what Stuart said from all the metrics he shared. I think we do see all of those benefits. But again, I think like right now, payment orchestration is solving a lot of the engineering challenges in terms of a lot of different connections and access to different networks. But again, like I think it does increase a lot of the back office. At least for me, for our side, we work with a lot of different PSPs and acquirers, payment service providers. But it has increased our operational challenges manifold, right? So and none of the providers actually sort of are able to solve a lot of the back office stuff. And I think that's where I would like to see the next set of innovation, next set of features coming in, as I mentioned, like reporting, reconciliation, chargebacks, maybe contracting as well.
Sounds like we're all on the same page. That's fantastic. I'd like to thank the panel, their comments and etc. I really appreciate their attendance today and the questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to the official MPE podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the show and check other video interviews with other industry leaders on our YouTube channel. For more content, follow Merchant Payments Ecosystem on LinkedIn and Twitter. Don't miss out on our Positivity magazine and remember to subscribe to the MPE newsletter at www.merchantpaymentsecosystem.com.